Hi folks, I thought you might be interested in a wee video to let you see the install on my H9 MB339, and more particularly have fitted a Grumania thrust tube. Probably there'll be a number of people that might be looking to consider how you fit a Grumania thrust tube into the MB339. So I'll take you through what I did, and hopefully it'll be of use to some people. So there's my setup. You can actually see the Grumania pipe there. I'm using a Kingtech K86 G5 turbine, and that's the main reason why I fitted the Grumania pipe over the standard pipe. The reason is that the G5 spools up very quickly. Once that gets going, it's woof and away it goes. And one of the potential issues with the G5 Kingtechs in a small thrust tube is that it can potentially blow back the gas that's going down that pipe. It blows back into the turbine, causes a false start or a non-start. And I actually had a situation where I had a lot of fuel lying in there, and it just didn't end very well. So fortunately, aeroplane's okay, and managed to get everything sorted out. But that's what prompted me mainly to go for the Grumania tube. It's not an easy situation to fit it. You can see though there's the bell mouth there, and I used two little 90-degree tabs that I made from the stuff that comes with the Grumania tube screw. I found the circumference of the bell mouth, halved it, made sure it was exact, marked it, and then drilled the bell mouth. The bell mouth comes undrilled, and then put the lugs on. When you actually fit the whole thing, it's really quite a challenge, because as well as having to consider how that fits in there, the engine mounts themselves have to be dremeled out a little just to let the bell mouth go in. But it's really important not to go too far forward with how you dremel it, because in the K86 you can see the engine mount is quite close to the end of the supplied turbine mount. So what I did was I added another layer of about 1/4 inch ply in below what is there to make sure there was plenty for the screws to bite in on. I had to slot it a bit, because you can see there's a wee former coming down there, and in behind there's a slot in the bit of ply I added, grooved into that, epoxied in, and I actually also added a little bit of Paxilin on the inside. I don't know if you can see that there, just to give it that added bit of additional support. You can see the holes that were where the turbine was originally when I had the original pipe in. So when you fit the Grumania pipe, it seems to be slightly shorter and the turbine goes back. So for some folk that may have some implications in terms of your CG. I would definitely recommend checking the centre of gravity once you have got everything back in. But in my situation, I have just got no nose weight, no additional nose weight. I'm running an HRB 3300 3S for the turbine. The G5 Kingtechs work on 3S LiPos, fortunately, rather than LiFe's. I've got two 3000 milliamp receiver batteries and a 1300 specifically for the undercarriage. So that's all what's inside. There's my UAT as well, and I'm currently running JR radio gear. You can see where I've mounted my pump, my ECU, and routed the wires. I routed the wires and outside of the holes in the formers, because I wanted to be able to, if I change radio gear, I can, like do that simply. Also tucked away in at the bottom there, hopefully you can see, is the retracting brake unit, and that makes it easier to run the cables to that. I'm using Ashlock cables, and they're run inside there. So when you're fitting the Grumania tube, there are two or three really important things that you need to figure out. One of the main ones is at the back. I'll put that light on here so that you can see this better. If I look up the tube there, you'll notice in the back here that the ring that comes actually with the aeroplane, it's this bit here, this kind of carbon effect ring. Because the width of the Grumania tube is wider, you actually have to cut a ring out of that, because the original pipe is about 55mm and I think this is 75mm. So the way that I did that, it's actually quite easy to do. I took a hacksaw blade, took one of the pins out so that it was, there wasn't a pin in the inside of it, put it in, and I cut it exactly halfway round, all the little holes in it. When you cut it exactly halfway around, it's a pretty decent fit. And then you just need to find something about that diameter, put a bit of sandpaper on it and sand it very lightly, checking it from the back until you actually get the tube to be able to push through there. Now, another thing that I found is that I'll come up from here for the moment while I'm telling you this. In the back, the outer wall of the thrust tube actually touches the former. There's a former goes across here under the tailplane, and it's quite square, so the top end of the rounded bit of the thrust tube actually touches it, but it's not really a problem. What I did do, there's not a lot of room to take any material off that, or very little room, but you can get your hand in, or a Dremel or something in there, and just do a very light sort of carve shape on the bottom of that lip, and it's just enough to let it get in, but it is a very, very tight fit in there. When you're actually installing the tube, the only way that I found that you could do it, and it took me ages scratching my head to figure out how to do it, was you have to take the bell mouth right off the pipe, take the fuel tank out, and the main tube goes in through here, in through the front, and then once you get it down and into place, obviously the turbine isn't in, you then pull it forward and reattach the bell mouth. It's a bit fiddly, but it can be done, and I think that is literally the only way I could see to do it. Also, to get it in, what you have to do is keep one of these little lugs connected and take another one off, because you have to sort of twist it to get it in, and once it's in through the hole at the back that supports the back of the pipe, you then can sort of twist it into place and attach your second little lug. So all of that is, it's very fiddly to say the least, and I don't know to what extent Grumania actually did this job when they offered the pipe up for sale. Another wee job that you need to do is the back of the mount, that goes onto here, the plate, because the top of the Grumania tube is bigger than the old one. You need to cut a little bit out, and if you can see there, you can see where I have cut that out. It doesn't affect the thing structurally at all, and just tidied it up, and that allows this hatch to sit snugly on there. The other job that you need to do is the little plate here, the heat plate. Because you are opening up this hole to such an extent, the little lugs here that are not in the original situation, they are longer, and a screw goes in and screws into this former. But because you've cut half of it away, you have to cut away these little lugs as well. You can see the little alloy or wee tin lugs there on this plate. So you need to do that very carefully, just so that they are a push fit onto the outer wall of the tube. And then to attach it, rather than having to attach it through these two screws, in behind here I have added a little piece of ply in there. I hope you can see that. It's a wee bit of ply, epoxied it in there, and once the thing is in place, just a hole through it and a single screw, and that seems to be working well. Before I put that all in, I also put some silver tape in there as best I could to in behind the actual wooden structure and the steel plate. So there's also self-adhesive silver stick-on tape in there, and then you can see actually down the thrust tube from there. So all of that is basically how you fit a Grumania tube into your MB339. So why would you want to do that? As I say, with the G5s, there's a lot of gas getting pushed out there very quickly, and with this wider tube it doesn't blow back. It actually flies really well on the new tube. I've flown it obviously with both. Doesn't really feel any different at all. If anything, it sounds better. There's a nice kind of whine off it when when it's going past. It sounds really good in the Grumania tube, I think. But definitely, anybody was thinking of fitting a bigger turbine, I don't know if it's a great idea fitting a bigger turbine to this model, because when you've got the low residual thrust of something like an 85, 86, that allows you to really get it nice and smooth on the throttle coming into for your approach to land. If you get too big a turbine in there, you may be in a situation where you get more residual dragging. For some people, that kind of can cause problems being able to get the thing slowed down. However, the model slows down really well on the flap settings and so on that are actually in the manual. Centre of gravity wise, mine works out without adding any weight, with the batteries that I already showed you in the turbine here. In the Grumania instructions it says to put the rear of the cone of the turbine 35mm into the bell mouth. So that's what I have done, and that's my setup for Kingtech 86 G5 with Grumania tube in a H9 MB339. So I hope that you found that very useful and interesting, and if anybody manages to do that themselves, let me know how you get on. Thanks, bye.